Before we begin, a quick and important disclaimer. The following content is for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute professional legal, financial, or real estate advice. Real estate transactions involving divorce are subject to complex state laws, family court orders, and unique tax implications. We are not attorneys, tax professionals, or licensed financial advisors. Every divorce situation is unique, and you should conduct your own due diligence and consult with a qualified professional in your specific jurisdiction before making any decisions regarding property, equity, or legal strategy. Traditional American real estate agent is dying, and a new, more clinical breed of professional is rising from the ashes of the housing market's most volatile sector. For decades, the divorce real estate niche was the dark secret of the industry, a messy, high-conflict corner that most agents avoided in favor of the happy, white picket fence buyers. But today, the demographics of who is selling these homes have shifted so radically that the old-school neighborhood expert is being replaced by something that looks more like a forensic analyst than a salesperson. In the next few years, the way $11 trillion in marital real estate assets are handled in the United States will change forever because of a fundamental shift in the people holding the licenses. Think about this historical trend. In the past, if a couple in suburban Ohio or Orange County decided to split, they called the family friend agent. This was usually someone who helped them buy the house 10 years ago, someone who came to the housewarmings and knew the kids' names. It was a relationship-based model, but that model is leading to what industry data suggests are billions of dollars in lost equity and years of avoidable litigation. We are witnessing the end of the empathy-only agent and the birth of the neutral expert. The modern divorce real estate professional is no longer just a realtor. They are a demographic outlier, often younger, more legally literate, and frequently coming from professional backgrounds in law, psychology, or high-level project management rather than just sales. Why does this matter to you right now? Whether you are a homeowner, an aspiring investor, or a professional in the industry, the generalist agent is a liability in a 2026 economy. We are entering the era of the silver tsunami of divorce, where older Americans with massive amounts of home equity are decoupling at record rates. If the professional handling that sale doesn't understand the intersection of real property law and the California Family Code, or whatever state jurisdiction they are in, the potential outcomes are catastrophic. We aren't just talking about a house sitting on the market. We are talking about contempt of court charges, frozen assets, and the total erosion of a family's primary wealth vehicle. This deep dive is designed to solve the most pressing problem facing the American homeowner and the real estate industry today: the competency gap. Most people realize too late that a standard listing agreement is a blunt instrument in a sharp-edged legal battle. By the end of this masterclass series, you will understand the precise demographic shifts occurring within the National Association of Realtors and beyond. You will see how the divorce specialist has evolved from a side hustle for struggling agents into a prestigious, high-barrier-to-entry designation that requires more than just a smile and a yard sign. We are going to look at case studies where the demographic shift in agencies saved multi-million-dollar estates from being liquidated at a loss. We will analyze the data on why female agents over the age of 45 are increasingly dominating this specific niche, transitioning from traditional residential sales into what is essentially a quasi-legal role. We will explore how the rise of certified divorce real estate experts is creating a new standard of care that the court system is now starting to demand. The problem with the old way was bias. In a traditional divorce sale, the agent would often pick a side, even if unintentionally. They would communicate more with the wife because she was more responsive, or they would align with the husband because he was the one paying the mortgage. This demographic of biased agents is being phased out by a new demographic of neutral third parties. These are professionals trained in high-conflict communication and domestic violence protocols. They understand that their role isn't to be a friend. It's to be an officer of the transaction who can withstand a cross-examination in a courtroom. In this first part of our deep dive, we are peeling back the curtain on the shadow market. These are the homes that never hit the MLS in the traditional sense because they are tied up in litigation. The people who manage these sales are becoming the most powerful players in the suburban real estate market. They aren't the agents you see on billboards with airbrushed photos. They are the ones sitting in the back of family courtrooms with a stack of title reports and a firm understanding of the lease pendens process. We have to address the historical context to understand the future. Historically, real estate was seen as a soft industry. You got your license, you showed some houses, and you collected a commission. But as divorce rates among the 50-plus demographic, the the gray divorce phenomenon, have spiked, the complexity of the assets has increased. We are no longer just selling a 3-bedroom ranch. We are untangling 401k-backed mortgages, complex solar leases, and properties with significant deferred maintenance that neither spouse wants to pay for. The new demographic of the divorce agent is someone who thrives in this complexity. They are data-driven. They use historical trends to predict how a judge will rule on a petition action. They are the bridge between the legal world and the financial world. For the U.S. audience, this is a critical shift. Your home is likely your largest investment. If that investment is at risk because of a life transition, you cannot afford a generalist. Throughout this series, we will break down the step-by-step evolution of this professional class. We will look at the training modules that are becoming the gold standard, moving away from simple sales scripts and into heavy-duty conflict resolution and property valuation. We will discuss why the demographic of agents in 2026 is skewing toward those who can handle the triage phase of a listing, the period where the house is literally falling apart while the owners refuse to speak to each other. This isn't about getting rich in a niche. This is about a fundamental professionalization of a sector that was historically ignored. We will look at how the shift from real estate agent to real estate consultant for the courts is changing the commission structures, the marketing strategies, and the very nature of property ownership in America. If you think you know how real estate works but you haven't looked at the divorce sector lately, you are looking at an obsolete map. We are going to dive into the specific data points that show why the divorce specialist is the only segment of the industry seeing consistent growth while traditional buyer's agents are struggling with new legislative hurdles. We will explore how these professionals are leveraging technology, from encrypted communication platforms for hostile spouses to AI-driven valuation models that can account for divorce discounts on property. The promise of this deep dive is clarity. By the time we are done, you will know exactly who the new power players are in the American real estate market, why the demographics of the industry are shifting towards specialized litigation support, and how you can navigate this landscape, whether you are a professional looking to pivot or a homeowner looking to protect your equity. This is the masterclass the industry didn't want to write because it exposes the flaws of the generalist model. Let's look at the first major shift, the transition from salesperson to neutral expert, and why the legal system is driving this change. To understand this transition, we have to look at the mounting pressure from the bench. Family law judges in 2026 are increasingly exhausted by he said, she said disputes over who left the back door unlocked or who refused to sign the listing agreement. Historically, the legal system treated real estate as a secondary issue to child custody, but as the median home price in the United States has climbed, the house is now often the only significant asset left to divide. This has forced a demographic shift where the modern agent must act as an unofficial officer of the court. Imagine a scenario in a high-growth market like Austin, Texas, in mid-2026. We will look at our first case study involving Michael and Emily. They are a high-earning couple in their late 40s who purchased a home in 2021 with a 2.8% interest rate. By 2026, they are divorcing. In the old model, Michael would have hired his golfing buddy who is a part-time agent, and Emily would have hired her cousin. The resulting conflict would have been a stalemate. Neither agent is neutral. Every piece of advice is viewed through a lens of suspicion by the opposing spouse. Michael's agent suggests a price drop, and Emily immediately suspects Michael is trying to sell low to a friend or simply wants a quick exit at her expense. In this 2026 landscape, the court intervenes. The judge realizes that the traditional sales model is failing the estate. The court appoints a neutral expert. This is where we see the demographic shift in action. The appointee is not a social friend of either party. They are a professional whose primary demographic marker is no longer neighborhood popularity, but rather their specialized training in conflict management and their status as a 730 evaluator or similar court-recognized expert. These professionals are increasingly former paralegals or individuals with degrees in social work who transitioned into real estate because they understood the emotional mechanics of a forced sale. The legal system is driving this change because of the historical trend of litigation. Case studies from 2024 and 2025 showed that when a biased agent was involved, the average time to sell a divorce-tainted property was 45% longer than a standard sale. The potential outcomes of this delay include the depletion of the marital estate through mounting legal fees. Judges in 2026 are now using a specific litmus test for the agents they allow into their courtrooms. They are looking for a demographic that prioritizes transparency and documentation over the high-pressure sales tactics of the past. Step by step, the neutral expert begins their process with the dual intake protocol. In the past, an agent would meet a couple in their living room and have a casual chat. The 2026 divorce specialist conducts 2 separate, identical interviews. They use a standardized 14-page intake form that covers everything from current mortgage status to the location of all hidden keys and the functional status of every appliance. This demographic of agents understands that if they tell Michael something they do not tell Emily, they have committed a breach of neutrality that could lead to them being removed from the case or even sued for professional negligence. Data from the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers indicates that in 2026, over 60% of top-tier divorce attorneys now refuse to work with any agent who does not have a specific certification in divorce real estate. This has led to a demographic purge of the generalist. The agents surviving in this niche are those who have mastered the 2026 mortgage trap. This is a critical historical trend to analyze. Because of the massive gap between 2021 interest rates and 2026 interest rates, the demographic of the divorce agent has had to become expert in creative financing. They are no longer just selling a house. They are analyzing whether a mortgage is assumable, or if a wraparound mortgage is a viable potential outcome to preserve the low interest rate for one of the parties. The profile of this new agent is someone who is comfortable with high-conflict communication. Imagine if a showing is scheduled for Tuesday at 2 p.m. In a traditional sale, this is simple. In a divorce sale in 2026, the agent must verify that the restraining order allows the other spouse to be within 500 feet of the property, or they must coordinate with a third-party service to ensure the house is empty. The demographic of agents who can handle this level of logistical stress is small, which is why we see a shift toward older, more experienced professionals who have a background in crisis management. They are the ones who can walk into a house where the walls have been spray-painted by a disgruntled spouse, and instead of panicking, they document the damage for the court and call a remediation team. This shift is also seen in the way these agents market themselves. The 2026 divorce specialist does not post on Instagram about how much they love their clients. Their marketing is focused on data, neutrality, and the preservation of equity. They speak the language of the attorney, not the language of the lifestyle blogger. They provide the court with a weekly status report that is objective, devoid of adjectives, and purely focused on market feedback. This level of professionalism has changed the demographic from the friendly neighbor to the clinical consultant. Consider the role of the 2026 divorce agent in managing the silver tsunami. As baby boomers divorce at higher rates than any other demographic, the agents handling these sales are dealing with massive amounts of equity and complex family dynamics involving adult children. The step-by-step detail of a gray divorce sale involves a deep dive into the tax implications of the sale. The modern agent must work alongside a certified divorce financial analyst to ensure that the sale of the family home doesn't trigger a massive capital gains tax event that could have been avoided with better timing. The demographic of agents who can navigate these waters is increasingly college-educated, often with a focus on finance or accounting. The potential outcomes for a couple who hires a neutral expert versus a generalist are night and day. Historical trends suggest that properties listed with a specialist sell for closer to the asking price because the specialist knows how to neutralize the house and the situation. They remove the scent of divorce from the property. They ensure that the photos don't show one half of a closet empty or a bedroom that clearly belongs to someone who has already moved out. They understand the psychology of the buyer, who is often looking for a deal on a desperate sale. The specialist prevents that perception of desperation, thereby protecting the equity of both Michael and Emily. As we move forward, we are seeing the rise of real estate teams that are structured like law firms. They have a lead negotiator, a document specialist, and a field agent who handles the physical property. This demographic evolution is making the solo agent a relic of the past in the divorce space. The 2026 agent is a system builder. They have a roster of trusted contractors, cleaners, and landscapers who are also trained in how to enter a high-conflict home without escalating the situation. This ecosystem of professionals is what allows the neutral expert to provide a level of service that was unimaginable a decade ago. But what happens when the conflict isn't just between the spouses? What happens when the demographic shift in the real estate market meets the demographic shift in the legal world, where judges are starting to order the sale of properties before the divorce is even finalized? This brings us to a specific legal mechanism that the 2026 agent must master, one that involves a direct appointment as a receiver. When the agent becomes a receiver, their demographic status changes from a service provider to a person with the legal authority to sign on behalf of a recalcitrant spouse. The transition from salesperson to neutral expert is not just a trend. It is a structural change in the American economy. In the next part, we are going to look at the specific financial instruments these agents are using to navigate the 2026 equity crisis. We will explore the rise of the divorce bridge loan and how the demographic of the agent is shifting to include those who act as unofficial financial navigators. We will dive into a case study where a house was nearly lost to foreclosure because of a spouse's spite, and how the expert agent used a little-known legal filing to save the property and the parties' credit scores. The stakes are higher than they have ever been, and the people holding the keys are no longer who you think they are. To understand how the modern divorce real estate agent is saving estates in 2026, we have to look at the specific legal mechanism known as the motion for a pendant light sale. In the past, many agents would simply wait for the final divorce decree before listing a home. This was a catastrophic historical trend. By the time a decree was signed, months or even years of missed mortgage payments, neglected roof leaks, and property tax liens had often hollowed out the equity. The new demographic of agents, those who function as financial navigators, intervene much earlier. They work with attorneys to facilitate a court-ordered sale while the divorce is still pending, precisely to prevent the total loss of the marital asset. Imagine if you are a homeowner named Sarah in 2026. You and your spouse, James, are in the middle of a high-conflict split. The marital home has a mortgage with a 3% interest rate, but James has moved out and stopped contributing to the payments as a way to exert financial pressure. In the old world of real estate, the bank would simply foreclose. But Sarah's agent, Robert, belongs to this new demographic of specialists. Robert understands that the potential outcomes of a foreclosure would destroy the credit scores of both parties, making it impossible for either of them to rent or buy a new home for 7 years. Robert doesn't just put a sign in the yard. Step by step, he documents the financial delinquency. He provides a comprehensive market analysis to the attorneys showing that every month the house sits in pre-foreclosure, the couple loses $15,000 in equity due to interest, penalties, and market shifts. He then assists the legal team in filing for an emergency sale order. This legal filing essentially bypasses a spouse's refusal to cooperate by putting the power of the sale into the hands of the court-appointed agent. In 2026, we are seeing more agents being cross-trained in these specific civil procedures, allowing them to act as the catalyst for saving a family's financial future before it hits the point of no return. This brings us to a massive shift in the financial literacy of the divorce real estate agent. In 2026, the most successful agents in this niche are those who can navigate the interest rate gap. We are currently living through a period where a couple might have $200,000 in equity, but cannot afford to sell because the cost of a new mortgage at 2026 rates would be double their current payment. This is known as the equity trap. The new demographic of agents is solving this by becoming experts in the ALT lien. An ALT lien is a specific type of deed that allows one spouse to buy out the other's equity, while keeping the existing low-interest mortgage in place, provided the lender allows for a release of liability. Case studies from 2025 show that agents who understood ALT liens were able to facilitate buyouts that saved their clients thousands of dollars in monthly carry costs. The agent's role here is to coordinate with a specialized divorce lender to see if a potential outcome exists where the staying spouse can afford the home on a single income. This requires a level of forensic accounting that the neighborhood realtor simply doesn't possess. Furthermore, the 2026 divorce agent has had to master the mechanics of the divorce bridge loan. Imagine a situation where the house needs to be sold, but Sarah needs $20,000 to put a deposit on a new rental and James needs $10,000 for moving expenses. The marital funds are frozen by a temporary restraining order. The specialist agent works with private equity firms that offer bridge loans specifically secured against the future proceeds of the home sale. This allows the parties to decouple physically, which almost always lowers the conflict level, and allows the house to be prepped for sale more effectively. The step-by-step detail of managing these bridge loans is intense. The agent must provide the lender with a high-certainty valuation and a projected timeline for the closing. If the agent is wrong about the price, the bridge loan could eat up the remaining equity. This is why the demographic of these agents is skewing toward people with backgrounds in investment banking and high-stakes underwriting. They aren't just looking at the color of the kitchen cabinets. They are looking at the debt-to-equity ratio of the entire marital estate. Historical trends also show that in 2026, the way we handle the physical condition of the home has changed. In a standard sale, you might suggest a fresh coat of paint. In a divorce sale, the agent often has to manage a situation where one spouse is actively sabotaging the property. We see case studies where spouses have poured concrete down drains or removed high-end appliances before a showing. The modern divorce agent uses what is called a property preservation protocol. They bring in a neutral third-party inspection team the moment they are appointed. They document every inch of the home with 3D scanning technology. If a spouse damages the home after that scan, the agent provides that data to the court as evidence of waste. This leads to a specific legal consequence. The court can then credit the cost of the repairs against the sabotaging spouse's share of the proceeds. This level of oversight is what characterizes the 2026 specialist. They are not just selling a house. They are preserving a crime scene, a financial asset, and a legal exhibit all at once. The demographic of people who can maintain this level of clinical detachment while under extreme pressure is very different from the people who entered the industry 20 years ago to host open houses and serve cookies. We are also seeing a rise in the use of the 1031 exchange in high-net-worth divorce cases, facilitated by these agents. While typically used for investment properties, the 2026 specialist knows how to work with tax professionals to see if a portion of the marital home, perhaps a home office or a basement suite that was rented out, can be treated as an investment asset to defer capital gains tax. This is high-level tax strategy that requires the agent to be part of a multidisciplinary team, alongside a CPA and a tax attorney. The financial navigators of 2026 are also dealing with the explosion of the short-term rental market's impact on divorce. Many couples in the U.S. now own an Airbnb as part of their portfolio. The valuation of these assets is significantly more complex than a standard residential home because it is based on cash flow, not just comparable sales. The divorce agent must be able to audit the profit and loss statements and explain to a judge why a property in a seasonal market might be worth less in November than it was in June. As the demographic of the agent shifts toward this expert-level financial literacy, the old way of doing business is becoming a liability. If an agent doesn't understand the difference between a quitclaim deed and an interspousal transfer deed, they can accidentally trigger a reassessment of property taxes that costs the client thousands of dollars annually. The modern agent is the guardrail against these errors. But even with all the financial tools in the world, there is one factor that can still bring a transaction to a grinding halt: the human element. Even if the math says a sale is the only logical choice, a spouse fueled by rage will often choose to burn the house down metaphorically rather than let the other person win. The 2026 divorce agent has had to develop a set of skills that the real estate industry used to leave to psychologists. They have had to learn the language of high-conflict personality types. In the next part, we are going to dive into the psychological warfare of the divorce sale. We will look at how the 2026 agent uses specific communication protocols to manage narcissists and enablers. We will explore the chilling reality of domestic violence in real estate, and why the demographic of the successful agent now includes people trained in tactical de-escalation. We will see how a simple text message can either save a deal or lead to a restraining order, and the secret code agents use to communicate with the court when a spouse is being obstructive. The financial stakes are high, but the personal stakes are about to get even higher. In the psychological trenches of a 2026 divorce sale, the modern real estate agent has to recognize that they are not just selling a structure made of wood and glass. They are managing a high-stakes emotional liquidation. The demographic of agents who thrive in this space has shifted toward those who understand the mechanics of personality disorders and trauma-informed communication. To navigate the psychological warfare often present in these transactions, the 2026 specialist uses a set of protocols designed to remove emotion from the equation and replace it with a clinical, evidence-based process. Imagine a case study involving a couple named David and Maria. They have been married for 22 years and own a high-value property in a suburb of Chicago. David is what clinicians might describe as a high-conflict personality. He does not want the divorce, and because the house is the primary asset, he uses it as a tactical base for his resistance. In the old model of real estate, an agent would try to be a friend to David, hoping to charm him into cooperating. In 2026, the specialist knows that charm is a liability. Instead, they implement the parallel selling protocol. Step by step, the parallel selling protocol begins with the elimination of all joint meetings. The demographic of agents who have mastered this niche recognizes that putting high-conflict spouses in the same room, or even on the same email thread, is a recipe for a blown deal. The agent sets up two distinct communication portals. Maria receives one set of updates, and David receives another. Every piece of information is mirrored exactly. If Maria is told about a showing on Thursday, David is told 3 minutes later using the exact same language. This prevents the triangulation that many high-conflict individuals use to create chaos. Historical trends in 2026 show a significant rise in agents utilizing a communication framework known as the BIF method, which stands for brief, informative, friendly, and firm. When David sends an angry, 4-page email detailing why the house should not be sold for a penny less than an unrealistic price, the modern specialist does not engage with the anger. Respond with 3 sentences. The current market data for your zip code indicates a median sale price of $800,000. I have attached the 3 most recent comparable sales for your review. Please let me know if you have any questions about these specific data points by 5 p.m. today. This demographic of agents understands that every word they write is a potential exhibit in a future court hearing. This brings us to the secret code of court communication. While it is not a literal cipher, it is a specific style of factual reporting that judges and attorneys in 2026 have come to rely on. When a spouse like David becomes obstructive, perhaps by refusing to clean the house for a showing or by leaving a large, aggressive dog in the kitchen during an open house, the agent does not call the attorney to complain. Instead, they issue a statement of non-cooperation. This document is a dry chronological log of events. It might read, on June 14, 2026 at 2 p.m., a scheduled showing was canceled because the property was inaccessible due to an unsecured animal. On June 16, 2026, the seller refused to sign the mandatory disclosure forms, citing a desire to wait for a change in weather. For a family court judge, this log is more powerful than any emotional plea. It provides the legal basis for the court to take more drastic measures, such as granting the agent the authority to sign documents on behalf of the obstructive spouse, or even ordering an immediate eviction of the party causing the delay. The potential outcomes for an agent who fails to use these protocols are severe. Historical data from 2024 and 2025 indicated that agents who were sucked into the emotional drama of their clients often faced complaints to the real estate board, or were named in malpractice suits when a spouse felt the agent had shown bias. The 2026 demographic has learned to maintain a wall of neutrality. This includes a strict policy on physical presence. Many top-tier divorce agents now use 360-degree virtual tours and digital lockboxes that track exactly who entered the home and for how long, providing an unassailable record of activity. A major demographic shift we are seeing in 2026 is the increase in agents who are specifically trained in domestic violence awareness. In many divorce cases, the sale of the home is the most dangerous time for a victim of abuse because it represents the final loss of control for the abuser. The modern specialist works with local law enforcement and domestic violence advocates to create a safety plan for the listing. This might involve hiding the listing on public websites until the vulnerable spouse has safely moved out, or ensuring that the agent is never alone in the property with the high-conflict party. The 2026 agent is trained to look for red flags that a generalist would miss, such as a spouse who suddenly becomes overly cooperative after months of resistance, which can sometimes signal an impending escalation. Consider the role of the gatekeeper. The 2026 divorce specialist acts as a shield between the buyers and the messiness of the divorce. If a buyer's agent asks, "Why are they selling?" a generalist might say, "Oh, they're going through a really nasty divorce and they just want it over with." This immediately signals to the buyer that they can lowball the offer. The specialist, however, is trained to say, "The sellers are moving in different directions and have authorized me to facilitate a professional liquidation of the asset at fair market value." They protect the equity by refusing to let the divorce become a feature of the marketing. This level of psychological management requires a demographic of agents who are highly educated and often older, with the life experience to handle high-pressure situations without flinching. We see many former corporate executives and legal professionals entering the real estate industry specifically to work in the divorce niche because their skill sets in negotiation and risk management are perfectly suited for it. They approach the sale as a project to be managed, not a relationship to be nurtured. Step by step, the agent also manages the physical appearance of the home to neutralize any signs of the split. This is known as the erasure protocol. If David has moved out and left half-empty rooms or Maria has removed all the family photos, leaving holes in the walls, the agent brings in a team to stage the home so it looks like a neutral, happy space. They understand that a house that looks like a war zone will sell for 20% less than a house that looks like a home. In 2026, the cost of this staging is often fronted by the agent's firm and reimbursed at closing, ensuring that the conflict over who pays for repairs doesn't stop the house from being market-ready. But as we master the psychology and the communication, a new challenge is emerging in 2026. It is a challenge that involves the very nature of what is being sold. We are no longer just dealing with physical properties, we are dealing with smart homes, digital assets, and properties that are tied to complex technological ecosystems. What happens when a spouse changes the passwords to the smart locks, the security cameras, and the thermostat as a way to harass the other party? In the next part, we are going to look at the rise of the tech-savvy divorce agent. We will explore how the 2026 specialist handles the digital decoupling of a home. We will dive into a case study where a house was essentially held hostage by a remote-controlled smart home system, and how the agent had to bring in a digital forensic team to regain control of the property. The battle for the house is moving from the front porch to the cloud, and the agents who can't speak the language of technology are being left behind in the 2026 market. Digital decoupling is no longer a luxury skill in the 2026 real estate market. It is a fundamental requirement for the divorce specialist. As the American home has become a complex network of interconnected devices, the demographic of agents surviving in this niche is increasingly composed of those who understand the Internet of Things, or IoT, as well as they understand title insurance. We have moved past the era where changing the locks was enough to secure a property. In 2026, the battle for the house often takes place within the administrative settings of a smart home hub, and the modern agent must be prepared to act as a digital mediator to prevent what the legal system now identifies as tech-based domestic harassment. Imagine a case study involving a couple named Liam and Sophia, living in a fully automated smart home in suburban Virginia. Liam is a software developer who installed every piece of technology himself. When the divorce proceedings became high conflict, Liam moved out but retained administrative control over the home's ecosystem. From a hotel room 5 miles away, he could monitor Sophia's every move through the integrated security cameras. He could turn the lights off in the middle of the night, set the smart thermostat to 90 degrees in the middle of July, and even blast music through the built-in speaker system at 3 in the morning. This is the reality of the smart home hostage crisis, and the potential outcomes for a generalist agent in this situation are disastrous. A generalist would be powerless, but the 2026 divorce specialist has a specific step-by-step protocol to handle this digital warfare. The first step in the digital triage protocol is the cloud audit. The demographic of agents who dominate the 2026 market are those who walk into a home and immediately identify every connected device, from the smart refrigerator to the connected irrigation system. They provide the court with a technical inventory. This is a detailed list of all devices, the accounts they are linked to, and who holds the administrative credentials. Historical trends in 2025 showed that without this audit, a spouse could maintain access to a property's digital infrastructure long after the physical sale was finalized, leading to privacy breaches for the new buyers and potential liability for the agent. Once the inventory is complete, the specialist coordinates with the legal teams to secure a digital handover order. This is a court mandate that requires the tech-dominant spouse to relinquish administrative privileges to a neutral third party, often the real estate agent or a specialized tech firm. Step by step, the agent oversees the factory reset of the home's central hub, ensuring that all previous user data is wiped and that a new, neutral account is established. This ensures that Sophia can live in the home safely while it is being prepared for market, and that no digital ghosts of the previous marriage remain to haunt the new owners. The 2026 agent understands that if they fail to perform this reset, they are not just selling a house, they are selling a security risk. This shift has created a new demographic of professionals, the real estate forensic technologist. These agents often carry certifications that didn't exist 5 years ago. They understand the protocols like Matter and Zigbee that allow different devices to talk to each other, and they know how to spot hidden cameras that a vengeful spouse might have installed. In high-stakes cases, we are seeing agents bring in digital forensic teams to scan the Wi-Fi network for unauthorized traffic. This is particularly critical in cases where one spouse is suspected of hiding assets. Case studies from early 2026 have highlighted instances where cryptocurrency mining rigs were hidden in crawl spaces, drawing massive amounts of electricity and creating a fire hazard, all while funneling digital wealth into a secret wallet. The modern agent must know how to read a utility bill to spot the spike in power usage that indicates such an operation. The demographic shift also extends to the way these agents handle the transaction itself. In 2026, The divorce real estate world is moving toward the encrypted transaction model. Because divorce involves the exchange of highly sensitive financial and personal data, the modern specialist uses end-to-end encrypted communication platforms and secure document vaults that are separate from the standard brokerage systems. They recognize that a standard email is a liability. It can be subpoenaed, intercepted, or accidentally forwarded to the wrong party. The 2026 agent treats every piece of data as a potential legal exhibit. They use blockchain-based logging to track exactly who opened a document and when, providing an audit trail that can be presented to a judge to prove that a spouse was properly served with a disclosure or a repair request. Furthermore, the 2026 agent is increasingly using AI-driven predictive analytics to manage the sale. These tools can analyze years of local market data, alongside current divorce filing trends to determine the optimal listing price for a quick but fair liquidation. More importantly, these AI systems can flag potential conflict before it erupts. By analyzing the tone and frequency of communications from both spouses, the software can alert the agent when a situation is de-escalating or when it is about to reach a boiling point, allowing the agent to intervene or notify the attorneys before a showing is sabotaged. This is not about replace human intuition. It is about augmenting the demographic's ability to manage high-stress environments with data-backed precision. We must also consider the rise of the virtual neutral space. In 2026, physical walkthroughs and inspections are often the flashpoints for physical altercations between divorcing spouses. To mitigate this, the specialist agent uses high-fidelity 3D scans and augmented reality to allow both spouses to view the staging and repair progress without ever being in the home at the same time. This technology also allows the court to conduct a virtual site visit. Instead of a judge relying on grainy cell phone photos of a damaged wall, they can put on a headset and walk through a digital twin of the property, seeing the exact condition of the asset in real time. This demographic of tech-forward agents is saving the court system thousands of hours and ensuring that property disputes are settled based on visual evidence rather than emotional testimony. The potential outcomes for the agent who masters this digital landscape are a higher referral rate from top-tier law firms and a reputation for being unshakable. For the U.S. audience, this means that the person you hire to sell your home during a divorce is no longer just a marketer. They are a digital strategist who protects your privacy and your equity. They are the ones who ensure that when the deal is done, the digital ties are severed just as cleanly as the legal ones. They understand that in 2026, the home is a data center, and managing that data center is the only way to ensure a successful closing. But as we master the cloud and the digital hubs, we cannot ignore the physical reality of the property itself. Even the most tech-savvy agent can be blindsided by what is physically hidden within the walls or in the backyard. In a divorce, the house becomes a container for more than just memories. It becomes a hiding place for the tangible remnants of a shared life that one party may not want the other to find. This brings us to a darker, more physical side of the divorce niche, the hunt for hidden assets and the management of high-value tangible property. In the next part, we are going to explore the physical forensic side of the divorce sale. We will look at how the 2026 agent uses specialized inspection tools to find floor safes, hidden compartments, and buried assets that were never disclosed in the financial affidavits. We will dive into a case study where a simple renovation led to the discovery of $250,000 in gold bullion hidden behind a false wall in a basement. We will discuss the legal and ethical obligations of the agent when they find something that was meant to stay hidden, and how the demographic is shifting toward those who can handle these discoveries with the discretion of a private investigator. The digital battle was just the beginning. Now we go beneath the surface. The physical forensic side of a 2026 divorce sale is where the real estate professional often crosses the line into investigative work, albeit strictly within the bounds of their fiduciary duty to the transaction. In this deep dive, we have to recognize that as trust in digital banking and central institutions has fluctuated leading up to 2026, a surprising historical trend has emerged: the return of the tangible asset. Couples in the upper middle and high net worth brackets are increasingly converting liquid cash into physical stores of value, gold, high-end watches, or even rare collectible items, and then concealing them within the one place they still feel they control, the family home. This has forced the demographic of the divorce agent to shift toward individuals who possess the keen eye of a home inspector, combined with the analytical mind of a forensic auditor. Imagine a character named Marcus, a seasoned agent in the 2026 Nashville market who specializes in high-conflict liquidations. Marcus doesn't just walk into a home to check the backsplash. He walks in to read the architecture for discrepancies. In one specific case study involving a couple we will call Sarah and David, the marital estate was supposedly worth $3 million, primarily tied up in the equity of their suburban mansion. However, Sarah suspected that David, a private equity consultant, had been skimming from their joint accounts for years. David's financial affidavits showed no such surplus. During the pre-listing walkthrough, a mandatory step in Marcus's protocol, he noticed a 3-inch discrepancy between the exterior length of the walk-in pantry and the interior measurements. In the old model of real estate, an agent would have ignored this as a construction quirk. In 2026, Marcus uses a professional-grade thermal imaging camera, a tool that has become standard for the elite demographic of divorce specialists. The camera revealed a temperature void behind the drywall. Step by step, Marcus followed the 2026 protocol for discovery. He did not grab a hammer. Instead, he immediately paused the walkthrough, documented the location with a timestamp video, and contacted both legal teams simultaneously. This is the hallmark of the new demographic: radical neutrality coupled with forensic observation. The potential outcomes of Marcus taking unilateral action would have been a mistrial or a lawsuit for property damage. By following the legal chain of command, he facilitated a court-authorized inspection that uncovered a hidden floor safe containing nearly $400,000 in gold bullion and pre-2020 currency. This discovery changed the entire trajectory of the divorce. Because Marcus had the training to spot the anomaly, the marital estate was increased by nearly $500,000, ensuring a more equitable split. This level of physical forensic work is why we are seeing a demographic shift where former law enforcement officers, structural engineers, and insurance adjusters are obtaining real estate licenses specifically to serve the divorce niche. They aren't interested in the glamour of real estate. They are interested in the truth of the asset. Historical trends in 2026 also point toward a rise in what we call the pre-divorce renovation trap. This is a scenario where one spouse, typically the one who manages the household finances, initiates a series of home improvements just before filing for divorce. Imagine if David had hired a contractor to install custom cabinetry in the basement. On paper, the renovation cost $80,000, significantly reducing the liquid cash in the marital pot. However, the 2026 specialist agent knows how to audit these improvements. They look for over-improvement or value shifting. In a case study from the Pacific Northwest, an agent discovered that the custom cabinetry was actually designed to be modular and easily removable. The spouse had essentially used marital funds to purchase high-end, movable assets and stored them as home improvements, intending to take them to a new residence after the sale. The specialist agent must be able to distinguish between permanent fixtures and disguised personal property. This requires a deep understanding of the 2026 Uniform Commercial Code and state-specific definitions of what constitutes a fixture. The demographic of agents who can do this are effectively acting as the eyes and ears of the court, ensuring that the house isn't being used as a laundry machine for marital assets. Step by step, the 2026 forensic walkthrough involves several key layers. First is the blueprint audit. The agent compares the original city-filed blueprints with the current layout. Any addition, closed-off doorway, or unpermitted basement finish is flagged. Second is the utility analysis. If a home has a massive spike in water or electricity usage that doesn't align with the number of occupants, the agent investigates for hidden climate-controlled storage or, as seen in recent case studies, high-density server racks used for undisclosed cryptocurrency mining. Third is the olfactory and auditory scan. In high-conflict cases, spouses have been known to hide revenge items, perishables or even small animals, inside the vents or behind walls to sabotage the sale. The modern agent uses borescope cameras to inspect HVAC ducts before the first showing. The demographic of the investigation-ready agent also understands the psychological weight of discoveries. When Marcus finds a hidden safe or a modular cabinet trap, he doesn't celebrate. He recognizes that this discovery will likely trigger an escalation in conflict. He is trained in tactical de-escalation to handle the immediate fallout. He knows that his discovery has just stripped one spouse of their exit strategy, and that makes the environment volatile. This is why the 2026 specialist often insists on having a licensed security professional present during the final stages of property preparation. For the U.S. public, the takeaway is clear. The house is no longer a passive asset. It is a dynamic environment that can be manipulated. The potential outcomes for a homeowner who hires a traditional, sales-focused agent in this scenario are devastating. You could lose hundreds of thousands of dollars in hidden equity simply because your agent didn't know how to measure a pantry or read a blueprint. The 2026 demographic of divorce agents is the only group standing between the marital estate and these physical financial leaks. We are also seeing these agents work closer than ever with the Appraisal 2.0 movement. In 2026, an appraisal is no longer just a look at comps. It includes a conflict-adjusted valuation. This is a data-driven model that accounts for the physical and psychological taint on a property due to high-conflict litigation. The specialist agent provides the appraiser with the forensic log, which can significantly alter the valuation strategy. If the agent has documented that one spouse has physically sabotaged the property multiple times, that data is used to adjust the expected sale price and the marketing timeline. But as we master the physical forensic side, a new and even more complex demographic shift is occurring. It involves the very way these properties are being brought to market. Sometimes the conflict is so high, the sabotage so consistent, and the house so digitally or physically compromised that a traditional open house is impossible. The property becomes what the industry calls unlistable. In the next part, we are going to look at the rise of the divorce auction and the private treaty pivot. We will explore how the 2026 agent handles properties that are too toxic for the MLS. We will dive into a case study where a house was sold in a blind bidding process to protect the safety of the occupants and the integrity of the price. We will discuss the demographic of crisis liquidators, agents who specialize in selling homes in 72 hours to institutional buyers to prevent total foreclosure. The game is changing from marketing to disposal, and you need to know who is pulling the strings when the traditional market shuts its doors. When the traditional market shuts its doors, the 2026 divorce specialist transitions from a marketer to a disposal officer. We are entering the era of the unlistable property. This occurs when the emotional or physical toxicity of a home has reached such a peak that putting it on the multiple listing service is no longer a viable potential outcome. Historically, the MLS was the gold standard for achieving the highest price, but in the high-conflict landscape of 2026, a public listing can actually be a liability. It invites sabotage, alerts creditors to a point of weakness, and provides a public stage for a spouse to perform their resistance. This has birthed a new demographic in the real estate world: the crisis liquidator. Imagine a scenario involving two homeowners, Kevin and Linda, in a high-stakes suburb of Seattle. It is mid-2026, and their home is worth $1.4 million. However, they have a narrow equity margin because of a recent cash-out refinance used to fund a failing business. Linda is currently occupying the property and has refused to allow a single appraiser or inspector through the door for 6 months. Kevin, who is living in a rental and paying both the mortgage and his own rent, is 72 hours away from the bank initiating a foreclosure action. This is a race against time where every second costs equity. In this case study, a standard agent would be paralyzed. They would be waiting for a court order that might take weeks to process. The crisis liquidator, however, operates on a different timeline. This demographic of agent maintains a proprietary database of institutional cash buyers, hedge funds, private equity groups, and professional flippers who specialize in buying distressed marital assets sight unseen. These buyers are not looking for a home to live in. They are looking for a financial instrument. They are willing to take on the risk of a holdover spouse or a sabotaged interior in exchange for a steep discount. Step by step, the crisis liquidator executes the private treaty pivot. First, they obtain an emergency limited power of attorney or a specific court appointment that allows them to negotiate on behalf of the marital estate without both signatures, provided the offer meets a certain threshold. Next, they bypass the public market entirely to avoid the risk of Linda scaring off traditional buyers by screaming at them during a showing or refusing to unlock the door. The agent sends a 3D scan taken months prior or a drone flyover to their institutional pool. Within 24 hours, they have a non-contingent cash offer. This is where the disposal aspect becomes clinical. The offer is likely 15% below market value, but when compared to the historical trends of foreclosure losses, which can exceed 30 to 40% once legal fees, back interest, and auction penalties are tallied, this disposal is the most responsible financial move for the estate. The agent facilitates a 7-day close. The institutional buyer takes title, and it is the buyer, not the divorcing couple, who handles the eventual eviction process. This removes the liability from Kevin and Linda and preserves what remains of their credit scores. The demographic shift here is profound. Crisis liquidators are often people with backgrounds in bankruptcy law, or distressed asset management. They do not use the language of real estate sales. They use the language of liquidation. They talk about cap rates, risk premiums, and recovery percentages. For the U.S. public, understanding that this option exists can be the difference between walking away with $50,000 or walking away with a deficiency judgment that haunts you for a decade. We are also seeing the rise of the divorce auction as a primary tool for these agents. In 2026, the non-judicial auction has become a way to force a conclusion in a stalemate. Unlike a foreclosure auction on the courthouse steps, a divorce auction is a managed event. The specialist agent sets a date, creates a sense of extreme urgency, and uses a transparent bidding platform where both spouses can see the offers in real time. This transparency is a psychological tool. It is much harder for a spouse to claim the agent is being biased, or that the house is being undersold, when they can see 5 different investors outbidding each other on a digital screen. Case studies from the 2026 Florida market show that divorce auctions often result in higher net proceeds than traditional listings, because they eliminate the inspection and appraisal contingencies that high-conflict spouses use to kill deals. The potential outcomes of an auction are finality and certainty. The agent's role in this demographic is to be the conductor of the auction, ensuring that all bidders are pre-vetted, and that the terms of the sale are strictly as is. Furthermore, we must examine the demographic of the iBuyer in this space. In the early 2020s, iBuying was about convenience for the average seller. In 2026, the iBuyer has become the neutral exit for the divorcing couple. The divorce specialist agent often acts as the facilitator for an iBuyer transaction because it removes the human element from the buyer side. There is no family looking at the house, no emotional letters to the seller, and no back-and-forth negotiations over a cracked tile. It is a mathematical transaction. For a couple that cannot agree on anything, agreeing to a computer-generated offer is sometimes the only path forward. But why would an agent encourage a sale to an institutional buyer or an iBuyer for a lower price? This is where the demographic of the 2026 agent shows its professional evolution. They recognize that time is a predatory force in divorce. The longer a house stays on the market, the more likely a spouse is to stop paying the mortgage, the more likely the pipes are to freeze, and the more likely the legal fees will consume the equity. The specialist agent calculates the burn rate of the marital estate. If the legal fees for both sides are totaling $5,000 a month, a quick sale today for $20,000 less is actually a net gain after 4 months of litigation. The 2026 agent is a master of this burn rate calculation. They provide the attorneys with a cost-benefit analysis that compares a 90-day traditional sale to a 10-day institutional disposal. This data-driven approach is what the court system now demands. It shifts the conversation from what we want to what is left. This brings us to the secret world of the pocket listing and divorce. In many high-profile cases, the demographic of the agent must be someone with a high degree of discretion. They operate in a shadow market where homes are traded between high-net-worth individuals without ever being seen by the public. This prevents the divorce discount perception and keeps the private details of the couple's life out of the local news. These agents are essentially wealth managers with a real estate license. But as we move from disposal and liquidation back toward the final distribution of funds, a new and terrifying hurdle appears. Even after the house is sold and the check is cut, the 2026 agent's job isn't over. They have to deal with the aftermath of the sale, the tax liens, the hidden debt, and the sudden realization that the government wants a piece of the remaining equity. In the next part, we are going to dive into the 2026 divorce tax trap. We will explore how the demographic of the agent is shifting to include those who can spot a capital gains nightmare before it happens. We will look at a case study where a couple thought they were splitting $600,000, only to realize that after the IRS was done, they were left with almost nothing. We will discuss the 121 exclusion, the impact of the 2025 tax law changes, and how the modern agent works with tax strategists to keep more money in the client's pockets. The sale is just the beginning of the end. The real battle is keeping what you just sold. The sale is just the beginning of the end. The real battle is keeping what you just sold. In 2026, the American real estate landscape is haunted by the ghost of the 2025 tax sunset. Most homeowners are unaware that the tax landscape they navigated for the last decade has fundamentally shifted, and nowhere is this more dangerous than in a divorce sale. The demographic of the successful divorce agent has had to evolve into a tax-literate specialist who understands that a $1.2 million closing check is not $1.2 million in the bank. If the agent does not understand the nuances of Section 121 of the Internal Revenue Code, they are essentially leading their clients into a financial ambush. Imagine if we look at a case study involving Alex and Taylor, a couple in a high appreciation market like Denver. They bought their family home in 2014 for $450,000. By mid-2026, the home is being sold as part of their divorce for $1.3 million. On the surface, this is a massive win, a $850,000 gain. Under the historical trends of the last decade, they might have assumed they were safe. But in the 2026 tax environment, the potential outcomes for Alex and Taylor depend entirely on the timing of their decree and the structure of their listing agreement. The core of the 2026 divorce tax trap is the Section 121 exclusion. As a married couple filing jointly, they are entitled to exclude $500,000 of gain from their taxable income. This would leave them with $350,000 of taxable gain. However, if they rush the divorce and the decree is signed before the house is sold, they are no longer a married couple in the eyes of the IRS. They become two single filers, each entitled to only a $250,000 exclusion. If Alex has already moved out and Taylor stays in the house, Alex might lose his exclusion entirely if the agent hasn't secured the proper legal language. This is where the 2026 specialist agent utilizes the 121(d)(3)(b) maneuver, often called the ghost residence rule. Step by step, the agent ensures that the divorce or separation instrument explicitly grants one spouse the use of the property. Under this specific tax code provision, as long as one spouse is granted use of the home by a legal document, the other spouse, even if they are living in a completely different state, is treated as using the property as their principal residence for tax purposes. The demographic of agents who know this rule is the only demographic saving their clients from a six-figure tax bill that could have been avoided with a single paragraph in a court order. Historical trends in 2026 also show the impact of the sunsetting Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. With the expiration of the 2017 tax brackets, the top marginal tax rate has reverted from 37% back to 39.6% for high-income earners. While capital gains rates remain at the 0, 15, and 20% tiers, the thresholds for these tiers have shifted. An agent who is not looking at the couple's total taxable income for 2026 might accidentally push them into a higher capital gains bracket by closing the sale in a high-income year, rather than deferring to the following January. To combat this, the modern agent performs a basis audit. In the past, an agent would just take the purchase price and the sale price and call it a day. In 2026, the specialist works like a forensic accountant. They know that every dollar added to the cost basis is a dollar that isn't taxed. Imagine if the agent spends 3 days digging through digital archives and old shoeboxes to find receipts for the 2018 kitchen remodel, the 2021 roof replacement, and the 2024 landscaping overhaul. Step by step, they distinguish between a repair and an improvement. A repair, like fixing a leaky faucet, does not increase the basis. An improvement, like a new HVAC system, does. By aggressively documenting these improvements, the agent might raise the basis from $450,000 to $600,000. This reduces the taxable gain from $850,000 to $700,000. In a high-conflict divorce where every penny is a battleground, the agent's ability to find $150,000 in tax-free equity is more valuable than any marketing strategy. We also have to address the interspousal transfer trap. In 2026, we see many cases where one spouse, let's say Alex, agrees to take the house in exchange for Taylor taking the retirement accounts. The agent must warn them that this is not an equal trade. Under Section 1041, transfers between spouses are generally tax-free at the time of the transfer, but the spouse receiving the house also receives the original cost basis. If Alex keeps the house and sells it 2 years later as a single person, he only has a $250,000 exclusion. He has essentially inherited Taylor's share of the future tax bill. The 2026 specialist agent coordinates with a certified divorce financial analyst to ensure the property's value is tax-adjusted before the assets are split, ensuring that Alex isn't left holding a ticking tax bomb. Furthermore, the 2026 demographic of agents is increasingly dealing with the net investment income tax, or NIIT. This is an additional 3.8% tax on investment income, including real estate gains, for taxpayers above certain income thresholds. An agent who isn't aware of the NI might provide a net sheet that is off by tens of thousands of dollars. They must be able to explain to the couple why the gain over the $500,000 exclusion isn't just taxed at 20%, but effectively at 23.8%. Consider the role of the 2026 agent in managing the 1031 exchange for mixed-use properties. Many American homes now include a dedicated rental unit or a home office that has been depreciated for years. When that home is sold in a divorce, the rules for the 121 exclusion and the 1031 exchange collide. The agent must be able to bifurcate the sale, treating a portion as a tax-free residence sale and a portion as a taxable investment sale that might require a complex exchange to defer the gain. This is not the work of a salesperson. It is the work of a high-level consultant. The potential outcomes for the couple are heavily influenced by the agent's ability to communicate these complexities to the attorneys. In 2026, the real estate agent is often the one educating the family law lawyers on the latest IRS rulings. Historical trends suggest that attorneys who don't specialize in high-net-worth cases often miss these tax triggers. The agent's documentation and tax-ready listing file become the blueprint for the final settlement. This demographic shift toward tax literacy is driven by the reality of the 2026 economy. With home prices at record highs and the tax safety nets of the last decade disappearing, the accidental tax has become the #1 destroyer of marital wealth. The agent who can navigate this is no longer just an option. They are a necessity for any couple with significant home equity. But as we secure the equity and navigate the IRS, we hit the final and most visible hurdle: the physical handover of the property. The sale is closed, the taxes are calculated, and the money is in escrow. But the house is still full of 20 years of shared life. The moving day in a high-conflict divorce is the single most likely time for a physical confrontation or a last-minute sabotage that can freeze the funds in escrow. In the next part, we are going to look at the logistics of the decoupling. We will explore how the 2026 agent manages the possession date in a war zone. We will dive into a case study where a simple dispute over a dining room table led to a 6-month freeze on $1 million payout. We will discuss the rise of the neutral moving coordinator and the specific legal writers agents are now adding to contracts to ensure that a broom clean condition isn't just a suggestion, but a court-enforced requirement. The money is almost in your hands, but the final 24 hours are the most dangerous. The final 24 hours of a divorce real estate transaction in 2026 represent a volatile intersection of property law, logistics, and raw human emotion. This is the period known as the possession gap. In a standard sale, the seller moves out, the buyer moves in, and the transition is a relatively orderly exchange of keys. In a high-conflict divorce, the home is a fortress, and the act of leaving it often triggers a psychological crisis known as the displacement reflex. To manage this, the new demographic of the 2026 divorce agent has abandoned the old hope for the best approach. Instead, they have adopted the role of a tactical logistics commander. They recognize that the potential outcomes of a poorly managed move-out include not just property damage, but the total freezing of the marital proceeds in an escrow dispute that can last for years. Imagine a case study in 2026 involving a character named Robert in suburban Phoenix. Robert is a specialist agent who has been court-appointed to sell a luxury property owned by a couple, Mark and Jennifer, who have not spoken in 6 months. The closing is set for 10 a.m. on a Friday. Under the historical trends of 2024 and 2025, an agent would simply wait for a call from the title company. But in 2026, Robert implements the 48-hour clear-out protocol. He knows that if Jennifer is still in the house at 9 a.m. on Friday, she is no longer a seller. She is a holdover tenant who can hold the buyer's $1.5 million mortgage hostage. Step by step, the 2026 specialist manages the fixture war. This is the most common cause of last-minute deal collapses. In the United States, the legal definition of a fixture is determined by the triple test: annexation, adaptation, and intent. If a spouse takes the smart home hub, the built-in shelving, or the custom-made dining room chandelier, they are not just taking furniture. They are technically stealing real property. Robert uses the 3D forensic scan he took at the beginning of the listing to conduct a pre-closing inventory. He compares the current state of the home to the initial scan. If Jennifer has replaced the high-end Viking range with a 2005 model from a liquidation center, the agent documents the breach immediately. The demographic shift in 2026 has led to the rise of the neutral moving coordinator. This is a third-party professional hired by the agent, often funded by the marital estate, to supervise the physical decoupling. This coordinator ensures that the list of excluded items, the things each spouse is allowed to take, is followed to the letter. If Mark was awarded the grandfather clock in the basement, the moving coordinator oversees its removal and ensures that the wall behind it is patched and painted as per the broom clean rider in the contract. This prevents the scorched earth move out, where a disgruntled spouse leaves piles of trash, removes light bulbs, or intentionally damages the flooring as a final act of defiance. In 2026, the broom clean condition is no longer a vague suggestion. It is a court-enforced requirement with a specific dollar value attached. The specialist agent includes a specific legal rider in the purchase agreement, known as the cleaning and repair escrow holdback. Step by step, it works like this. At the time of closing, $5,000 to $10,000 of the seller's proceeds are held in a separate account by the title company. This money is not released until the buyer completes their final walkthrough and signs a release form. If the home is left in a state of disarray, the buyer can use those funds to hire a professional remediation crew immediately, without having to sue the sellers. This historical trend has significantly reduced the number of post-closing litigation cases in the family court system. Consider a second case study involving the digital handover, which we touched on previously but which becomes critical in the final hours. In 2026, a house is a collection of accounts. The specialist agent must ensure that the sellers have not just left the keys, but have transferred the administrative ownership of the smart locks, the solar panel monitoring system, and the high-speed fiber gateway. If a spouse like Jennifer refuses to release the password to the smart security system, she still effectively owns the home's eyes and ears. The 2026 agent uses a digital escrow service that holds the final payout until the buyer's IT consultant verifies that all administrative privileges have been successfully transferred and the previous owner's access has been purged. The potential outcomes for a buyer who ignores these protocols in 2026 are frightening. We have seen case studies where a buyer moved into a divorce sale home, only to have the previous owner remotely lock the doors and turn off the water via a smartphone app. The modern agent is the barrier against this digital trespassing. They understand that in the 2026 economy, the physical key is the least important part of the handover. Furthermore, the demographic of the 2026 agent has had to become expert in the logistics of the split closing. In a divorce, it is rare for both spouses to be in the same city, let alone the same room for the closing. The agent manages a complex dance of mobile notaries and digital signatures. They must ensure that the closing disclosure, the document that shows exactly how much money each party is receiving, is approved by both attorneys before a single signature is captured. If the math is off by even $1, a spouse might refuse to sign, triggering a breach of contract with the buyer. The specialist agent acts as the final auditor, double-checking the pro rata split of property taxes, HOA fees, and repair credits to ensure there are no excuses for a delay. As we reach the final minutes before the recorder's office closes, the agent's focus shifts to the immediate future of the clients. In the 2026 market, many divorcing spouses struggle to find new housing because of the impact the divorce has had on their liquid assets. The specialist agent often coordinates with the next set of professionals, the rental agents or the mortgage brokers for the new purchases, to ensure that the funds are wired directly into the necessary accounts for the next move. This is the holistic approach of the new demographic. They aren't just getting the house sold. They are ensuring the people inside it have a place to land. But as the 2026 real estate market continues to evolve, we are seeing the emergence of an even more powerful professional. This is the person who doesn't just manage the divorce sale, but who has redesigned the entire ecosystem of marital asset liquidation. They are the architects of a new standard of practice that is moving from the suburbs to the highest levels of the American legal and financial systems. The role of the agent is expanding into territories that were once the exclusive domain of judges and high-level economists. In our final part, we are going to look at the future of the divorce real estate industry. We will explore the rise of the super agent, a professional who combines the skills of a lawyer, an accountant, a technologist, and a mediator into a single license. We will discuss the 2027 legislative outlook for marital property sales, and the one thing every American homeowner needs to do today to protect their equity from a future life transition. The demographics have shifted, the rules have changed, and the final takeaway will redefine how you view your home as an asset and a liability. The masterclass concludes with the most important data point of all: the survival rate of equity in the modern American divorce. The survival rate of equity in the modern American divorce is the metric that separates the casualties of the housing market from the survivors of the legal system. In 2026, Data suggests that in a traditional real estate transaction handled by a generalist, the marital estate loses an average of 22% of its net value through a combination of prolonged market time, avoidable tax triggers, and litigation fees driven by property disputes. However, when we look at the historical trends of cases managed by the new demographic of specialists, that loss is mitigated to less than 7%. This 15% delta is not just a number. For the average U.S. homeowner, it represents the difference between a down payment on a new life and a decade of financial recovery. As we look toward the future, the demographic of the divorce real estate agent is evolving into what the industry calls the super agent. This professional is no longer a solo practitioner, but the head of a multidisciplinary tactical unit. By 2027, the standard for elite divorce real estate will likely move toward a mandatory certification that combines advanced mediation, forensic accounting, and real property law. We are seeing a legislative outlook in states like California, Texas, and Florida, where family law courts are considering the implementation of the Divorce Equity Protection Act. This proposed legislation would require that any court-ordered sale of a primary residence be handled by an agent who has documented expertise in neutral third-party representation, effectively ending the era of the family-friend realtor in the courtroom. Imagine a final case study involving a couple named Elena and Daniel in 2026. They own a smart home in North Carolina with significant appreciation and a complex web of home equity lines of credit used to fund a tech startup. In the old model, this house would have been a forensic nightmare that would have languished in the system for years. But their agent, a member of this new demographic, utilizes the 2026 Integrated Divorce Registry. This is a digital blockchain-based ledger where every repair receipt, utility bill, and mortgage statement is uploaded and verified in real time. This registry creates a transparent financial narrative that the judge can access with a single click. Elena and Daniel's agent doesn't just wait for a settlement. They drive the settlement by providing the court with 3 distinct potential outcomes. Outcome A is an immediate institutional disposal to preserve a high-interest cash position. Outcome B is a managed 90-day listing with a neutral staging protocol to maximize the $500,000 tax exclusion. Outcome C is a structured buyout where the staying spouse assumes the 3.5% mortgage through a specific 2026 federal modification program designed to prevent housing instability during divorce. By presenting these data-backed paths, the agent removes the guesswork from the legal process and forces both spouses to deal with the mathematical reality of their situation, rather than their emotional grievances. This brings us to the ultimate shift in how the U.S. public perceives homeownership. In 2026, we are witnessing the end of the home as a purely emotional asset. The demographic of agents we have been discussing has educated the market to view the home as a liquidatable financial instrument that requires a pre-packaged exit strategy. We are seeing more couples in 2026 and 2027 drafting real property partition agreements alongside their prenuptial or postnuptial contracts. These agreements name a specific divorce specialist and outline the exact forensic protocols to be used if the marriage dissolves. This level of proactive equity protection is becoming the gold standard for the modern American family. The role of the agent is also expanding into the realm of post-divorce housing transition. In the 2026 economy, a credit score can be decimated by a single missed mortgage payment during a divorce. The super agent works with credit restoration specialists and niche lenders who offer the divorce recovery mortgage. This product allows a spouse who is not the primary earner to use their share of the home equity as a capitalized asset to qualify for a new loan. Step by step, the agent facilitates the transfer of funds from the sale directly into a protected escrow account that serves as collateral for the new purchase. This ensures that both Elena and Daniel can move into new residences on the same day the old home closes, preventing the cycle of homelessness or high-cost short-term rentals that historically plague divorcing parties. Data from the 2026 National Association of Divorce Professionals indicates that agents who utilize these advanced protocols have a 90% lower rate of being subpoenaed to testify in court. Why? Because their documentation is so thorough and their neutrality so absolute that there is nothing left to litigate. They provide the truth of the asset, and the truth is the only thing that can close a high-conflict file. The demographic of the peacekeeper agent is becoming the most profitable and prestigious niche in the entire real estate industry because they solve the one problem that a computer cannot: the management of human volatility within a multi-million-dollar transaction. As we conclude this deep dive, the most important takeaway for you is the vetting process. In the 2026 market, If you are interviewing an agent for a divorce sale and they do not ask to see your preliminary title report, your last 12 months of utility bills, and your temporary restraining orders within the first 20 minutes, they are not a specialist. If they do not have a dedicated secure communication portal that separates your data from your spouse's, they are a liability. The modern divorce agent is a high-level consultant who operates with the precision of a surgeon and the impartiality of a judge. The survival of your equity depends on recognizing that the person you hire is not just selling a house. They are defending your financial future against the most expensive emotional crisis of your life. The demographics have shifted because the complexity of the American estate demanded it. The rise of the forensic, tech-savvy, and tax-literate specialist is the market's natural response to the $11 trillion in marital assets currently at risk across the United States. But even as we master the mechanics of the divorce sale, a new shadow is falling over the real estate market. It involves a massive shift in how the next generation, Gen Z, is viewing property ownership through the lens of fractionalized marriage contracts and co-living investments. The very definition of marital property is about to be challenged by the rise of the Decentralized Autonomous Organization, or DAO, in residential real estate. In our next deep dive series, we will explore the terrifying world of the 2027 blockchain foreclosure and how the next generation of real estate professionals is preparing for a world where your house is owned by a digital ledger and your divorce is settled by a smart contract. The evolution of the agent was just the first step. The evolution of the asset itself is about to begin. If you thought the divorce specialist was a radical shift, you are not prepared for what happens when the court has no one to serve because the owner of the house doesn't technically exist. We are going inside the code of the 2027 housing market to see who really holds the keys to the future.